Forktales, a podcast that feeds the food and beverage world. Forktales is brought to you by Pavone Group and Vigor, a branding and marketing agency for restaurant, beverage, and hospitality brands. Learn more at vigorbranding.com. If you love what we're serving up, please give Forktales a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. Think of it as a tip for good service.
Hey folks, welcome to Forktales, and I'm excited. Today's guest is Stephen Baldi. He's the founder and president of Baldi Management Group. Baldi Management Group is an airport concessions and management consulting company. It's a mouthful there. Manages concessions in Reagan National Airport, JFK International Airport, and Dulles International Airport. Stephen, welcome to Forktales, and thank you so much for joining us.
Michael, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So for those that don't know, all of these are located in the sort of DC metro, Baltimore, down in DC metro area, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Even though Philadelphia is my hometown, I've been in Washington, DC for almost 30 years. So this is home base for us.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have a little trick question because that was going to be my first question. Are you still a Philly sports fan? I mean, do you bleed eagle green?
If you cut me, it would be nothing but green. I live in Washington, DC.
Beautiful.
My heart is in Philadelphia.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, those guys, I don't even know what they call themselves these days. There's the Commanders, the Washington Football Club. I mean, they're just
football team. They're all
just it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So.
Yeah, Michael, my family would disown me if anything other than my zip code changed as far as my hometown affiliation.
Hey, it's awesome. You got to bring it. I had a gentleman come in from Oregon last week to speak to a bunch of advertising agencies from North America. We hosted him in Philadelphia, and this guy was so excited. He came from there, but he was Philly through and through. So everything in his presentation tied back to a Philly icon, something about Philadelphia that was iconic. And, you know, at our company, we're very proud that we're an independent advertising agencies. We have an agency called Vigor and an agency called Quench. Vigor is restaurant branding. Quench is food and beverage marketing. And the whole thing was around independence and how important it is. And he had all these great icons from like Nick Foles to Mike Schmidt to the Fanatic to, I mean, Will Smith. I mean, he just went through all the Philadelphia stuff, you know, the Liberty Bell and everything else. And so it was cool. It was cool.
I love it. I'll tell you an interesting story about Nick Foles. So I had a really good feeling about our Super Bowl run, even though, you know, Carson Wentz, who was leading as the MVP that year, went down. And the Friday before the Super Bowl, something told me to go online and buy a Nick Foles autograph helmet.
Wow.
And I did. Now, I did not expedite the shipping, Michael. So it was not in my possession on Monday after we had won the Super Bowl. And many of my friends said that helmet's never going to show up, but it did.
That's awesome.
I bought it for $99, and I can tell you it's worth a lot more than that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's worth a lot to people in Philadelphia. So it's fantastic. And the pride of that city runs deep. So, all right. So tell us about Baldi Management Group and what it does, what inspired you to get into the airport concession games. I mean, you started, I think, in residential property, right?
I did. I started in residential property management in 2002. And I started in airports in 2005. And it was all kind of serendipitous. I had a really prickly history before starting in 2002 at Kettler Management, which managed tax credit properties, but also Class A luxury communities.
Okay.
And I had a tenant coming to my office and she said, Stephen, you know, I see you engaging with the residents and how you handle issues. And I think you should be doing more. And I thought to myself, like, this woman doesn't know me. Yeah, I just fixed her fireplace, but like, who are you to come in my office and tell me what I should be doing? And at the time I was making $22,000 a year with a Georgetown degree. Mm-hmm. And the job that they wanted me to interview for paid $85,000 a year.
Wow.
So as you can assume, Michael, I took the interview, I got the job. And so for 3 years, I worked in development for Westfield, which most people know as shopping mall developers. Mm-hmm. They have an airport division. And so I was responsible for the redevelopment of National Airport here in Washington, D.C. from 2005 to 2008. And then I leveraged a relationship with OTG Management, which has a very large presence at Philadelphia International, into a joint venture relationship, and actually launched the company BMG in 2008. And we've not looked back since.
That's fantastic. It's funny. I don't know you. We're really talking for the first time. I can tell right away, like you have a positive attitude, and I can tell you're engaging. And so I could see how someone would see you in action and be like, hey, you could do more. Like you can be a part of something bigger. And it's obviously what's happened, it's awesome. I'm a big proponent of attitude. I mean, I love to know where people went to school. I mean, if I interview you, I want to see your brains on the table, but I really want to know what your personality's like. I want to know about your attitude. I want to know how much of a person you are that wants to win and be engaging and help people. And it comes through with you right away. And that's cool.
I'll take it back if you want me to. So back in 1988, I was turning 13 and I begged my mom for a pair of Air Jordan sneakers. Mm-hmm. And you'll remember when Jordans first came out, they were the first shoe over $100.
Oh, yes, they were. Yep.
I grew up in a upper lower class household, and it was a stretch for my mom to purchase these shoes. Mm-hmm. But I begged her and I begged her and I begged her, and she ended up buying them for me. And she said, I just want you to be safe. Well, you probably can assume where the story goes. Within like a month of getting these sneakers, I was an attempted robbery. Mm-hmm. And I acted very violently to defend myself. And it resulted in me getting expelled from the school that I was at. And as a punishment, rather than letting me play basketball for the entire summer, my mom forced me to go to the reading, math, and basketball clinic at Friend Central, which is a very prominent independent school on the main line of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And that decision changed my life. I went from living in a predominantly all Black neighborhood to a private school that I was the only Black male in my class.
Wow.
And what it did was it changed my perspective of what was accessible. Like I had never seen a computer before.
Right.
And at this school, there was a computer lab where we could sit down and navigate things. And so going to Friend Central, having my mom make that leap of faith changed my trajectory in many ways. I matriculated from there to Georgetown University here in Washington, D.C., which is how I got to Washington, D.C. So I am a super Philadelphia sports fan.
Awesome.
Not only am I from Philly, but Allen Iverson was my classmate
at Georgetown
University. Yeah, we were the same class. And so
that's so cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and AI. It's legendary.
My commitment to making meaningful connections with people comes from way back then when I was forced to do it, not only because of who I am, but my circumstances. And I've tried to carry that out through my career and my life.
That's fantastic. That's great. That's a great story. It's funny that on the Air Jordans at that time, when they came out, and I can follow you on that. I know you nailed it. You said the first sneaker that was over $100. My dad had this like mom and pop retail sporting goods store. We sold mostly like hockey stuff. We were from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I was working in a store in Camp Hill outside of Hershey. It's up in the West Shore, they call it. Anyway, long story short, I was in the mall and we sold some sneakers and the Air Jordans came out. And we had them on the wall. And it was like, it was insane. $100 for a pair of sneakers. Yeah. And I mean, like, whereas I'll say the average then was probably like on the high end was probably like 50, 55. Yeah, for sure. And this went right to 100. And it was funny. My dad, maybe that's when I started learning about, and I really did learn a lot about marketing, working in retail, because you have to talk to people, you have to sell. And I think that's the most important skill a person can learn. Communicating with people and learning how to sell, like, at least present yourself, right? So I put these sneakers at the very top. I said, Dad, you know what? I said, everybody wants the Air Jordans. Most people can't afford them, but everyone wants to come and look at them. So I always sell them the white Nikes, the bottom, they're like $45. But, so for every one Air Jordan I sold, I used to sell like 30 other pairs of shoes. You know what I mean?
Get them in the store. It's like a newspaper.
That's
People
right.
don't necessarily want just the newspaper. At least the retailer doesn't, but they come in to buy the newspaper and then they buy the water, the soda, the candy.
Yeah. I lured them in with the Air Jordans. And I think we had like 5 pair at the most. I mean, we couldn't afford, it's a little mom and pop store.
Probably 2 sizes.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. So that's funny. So, okay, we talked about sports and Philly and all that. You pride yourself on being a local company and playing in front of the home crowd. Talk a little bit about the local connection in DC that you have.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, when you fly into most airports, what people don't automatically see, but being a former developer, I understand that any airport authority, when you land in their airport, they want you to know what city you were in. So national brands are extremely important. So you'll have your Dunkin' Donuts, you'll have your Potbellies, which are franchises that we operate. But every airport wants you to have a sense of place. So when you fly into Philadelphia Airport, you'll have a Jim Steaks because that's historical to that region. When you fly into National Airport here or Dulles International, you'll have your South Blocks, which is an acai base concept here in the DC. You'll have Ben's Chili Bowl, which has been around since the 60s. And so we've prided ourselves from identifying and connecting with other founder-led brands because I'm a founder. And nothing against a hired gun. I know they are often effective at their job, but there's something different about a founder-led company because you've built it. Yeah, it probably has more meaning to you behind just the bottom line results that you drive. It's personal. Yeah, and so we've developed very deep relationships with companies like Founding Farmers, with Timber Pizza, who are all local-based companies here, and we expect to continue to grow it, not just in this region that we're in, but as we grow into other markets to do the same.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you nailed it. I mean, like, I'm a founder, I'm an entrepreneur, and, and again, wonderful folks that work with me. I'm very, very, very lucky. But, for most people, it's their job, it's their career. And hopefully there's a sense of family and a real relationship. But for me, it's my life. I mean, I am defined personally by this, which is probably pretty shallow. I mean, look, I love my daughters. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I love my family with all my heart, but I feel like I'm defined by my company and what I built and all of that. And I just, so again, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing or whatever, but it's a lot deeper, right? When you found something and for sure. It's a lot deeper, and everyone thinks it has to do with like money and stuff, and it really doesn't. It's really about, sort of like your life's work. And, I get the most excitement out of seeing the growth of the folks in the company. It's great to see the brands grow and the companies grow, but I really get a kick out of seeing the folks that have been here a long time and all that. So anyway, that's me. But I totally concur with what you're saying as far as the founder led. I mean,
at some point as fantastic. A founder, you most likely had to put something at risk that meant something to you. Yeah. Whether it's personal guaranteeing, first leverage to build the company, or, having to bail it out because you run into a pandemic, which we all faced back in 2020. Oftentimes you can't just walk from that business and matriculate to another W-2 position because this is yours. And so I love when I can connect with founders. I'll work with non-founders also, but there's something unique about the journey we've all been on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit. Just so folks know, I mean, what's really cool about this conversation is with Vigor, we work with restaurant brands, right? So we're very familiar with restaurant brands, and you have brands like Potbelly, Smashburger, you said Founding Farmers soon to come, Timber Pizza, Dunkin. I mean, some household names. I don't know if
Auntie Anne's. Don't forget Auntie Anne's.
No, I can't. Actually, we actually worked on Auntie Anne's. We have an agency called Quench, a branding agency, food and beverage, that actually worked with Auntie Anne's because they started here in Lancaster.
They did.
Yeah, and I got to meet Ann Byler in the beginning. So Auntie Anne is actually a person, and she's a wonderful lady. And it was a really, really awesome to meet her. And she was she's a very philanthropic lady, very, very generous, and very successful. So she's got a phenomenal story as well. But so I certainly won't leave Auntie Anne's out. But you have all these great brands. Talk a little bit about. I mean, you said some are founded by the founders and all that. What's it like to manage all these different brands?
I'll tell you, it's a dynamic environment. Airports are a wonderful place to do business. Again, I share with you briefly how I matriculated into them, but once you end up in this kind of ecosystem, it's hard to walk away. Mm-hmm. We get the privilege of serving the traveling public every day. And what's special about that are the passengers are dynamic. There are people who are going on business trips. There are people who are going on vacations. There are people who are going to be celebrated, and there are people who are going to, usher people off into a transition of life. And we get to meet and connect with them all. Mm-hmm. And so I tell our crew members that we have the privilege of participating in whatever journey people are on every day. And then the following day, we get a whole new group of people coming through. So that's dynamic. And the industries are small. I will tell you, it's about a $8 billion industry nationally in the United States, food and beverage and airports. But the industry is really controlled by about 20 key companies. And within those 20 companies, you probably have 50 total key players. And so we know each other. You typically don't leave the industry. Your business card may change. So you may go from company to company, but it's a small ecosystem. And so I've enjoyed being in the industry now 18 years. I started when I was 2. But it's been an extraordinary 18 years, except for some of the challenges like COVID. But, for the people who were able and blessed to push through it, I think we have a different perspective on what we can be and what we should be in the businesses that we lead. To your point, being defined by your business is not necessarily shallow, but there's levels, there's depth to what we do.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to be able to swim in those depths for many years.
That's awesome. We'll get to COVID in a second, but I want to go back to airports. I'll say, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a customer. I'm in an airport every single week. So when you're describing the people you see there, it's like, it's every single walk of life. Everyone seems to have a higher level of stress. Everyone's in a hurry, even when they're not, or even worse, if someone's really not in a hurry and they're walking slow in the airport, that can actually be more frustrating and stressful. But so how do you deal with that chaos? I mean, you got all these people that are amped up and nervous and they have anxiety or whatever. And then all of a sudden you've got to serve them and take them, and represent these great brands and actually make the stuff in a fast time, because they're always running late. Even if they're not, they just think they're always, stressed. So talk about airport concessions. Talk about that chaos.
Yeah. So you meet people where they are. And I would tell you, operating a street side restaurant versus an airport, it's a completely different sport. I tell these founder-led companies, when they're thinking about matriculating into airports, I tell them, it's like playing high school varsity basketball, and then you get drafted to the NBA. Like the speed, the requirements, we have to go through the logistical challenges of having every box that comes into your restaurant scanned. Like Cisco's not pulling up to our back door and delivering our ground beef for Smashburger. Like it's going through an X-ray, just like your luggage is.
Yeah.
All of our crew members have to go through a 10-year federal background check.
Sure.
There's complexities to the business, which are to our challenge. But to me, it's also kind of to our benefit, Michael, because it reduces my competition. Because unless you're a serious player, you're not trying to participate in airports. And so for me, understanding those barriers and be able to navigate them are great. But from a day-to-day operation standpoint, we encourage our crew members just to meet people where they are. Mm-hmm. It may be the 50th time you've welcomed someone to our restaurant, but it's the first time you've spoken to the person that's in front of you. And again, you don't know if they're going on vacation or they're going to a celebration of life to send a family member home. Regardless, you should be additive to their experience and not adding additional stress or complications. Just try to deliver them fast, friendly, exceptional service, because that's our standard. That is our vision for the company, which is being exceptional is our standard. It's not something that happens intermittently. It happens all the time. And so we welcome the chaos. When it's raining and snowing outside, even though your flights are delayed, we kind of welcome that, because that means we get to hang out with you a little bit longer. So as long as we're not canceling flights, if they're just delayed, that's kind of our sweet spot. So
there you go.
We welcome it all.
That's awesome. You said something really interesting. So as I mentioned, Vigor is our agency that does branding and marketing for restaurants. I know, and it's not, it's common knowledge that turnover and employees in the restaurant industry is like the biggest hassle, right? Everyone's dealing with that turnover. But you just said something. They have to go through this long, arduous process to get through. So do you find that you have, I'll say, maybe better qualified, better quality team members in your restaurants?
I will tell you that our hourly and even our salary leadership, on some levels, they're more committed. Because it is a personal investment to get through the process. And so, typical food and beverage turnover is anywhere from 100 to 150% annually. Ours is closer to like 30.
That's fantastic. I never thought that would have never dawned on me that would be an unfair advantage. It's funny, like I was telling someone the other day, the higher the barrier to entry in business, actually the better the business is, because you don't have just everybody and anybody competing. So you have a higher barrier of entry. And with that, you sort of have a captured to a degree group of people, right? But the one thing that is interesting, I think if I remember correctly, I think it's like 30%. I'll say if it's a Dunkin' Donuts on the street corner, 30% of their customers are probably repeat, right? You are not. I mean,
No.
you might have the same business guy that flies every Thursday out to, wherever.
We'll have our Michaels. We have our Michaels.
Yeah. I'll hit your place and at the airport, get a coffee on the way out, but that's it. Yeah, that's it. So
I will tell you though, we do have, outside of the traveling public, we do have recurring customers who are the people who work at the airport. I mean,
no, that makes sense. Sure.
At National and Dulles Airport, you get anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 employees that are there every day. And so they are also extremely important.
They got to eat and drink, right?
They got to eat and drink, and they have to do it fast.
Right. That's right.
So we have different incentives to get them in and out, but they are our recurring customers, and they're about 15 to 20% of our business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, going back to the old mall days that I was talking about, the sneakers, I sold a lot of sneakers to people that worked in the mall. Not many Air Jordans, but a lot of the lower end sneakers. So
yeah, for sure.
So we talked, you hit on it earlier, and I know we inevitably, hopefully one day we don't have to talk about it, but we always end up going back and talking about COVID. And, one of our companies in our holding company is a company called Varsity, and Varsity does retirement communities around the country. We market retirement communities. Well, that industry shut down. I mean, no one was going, no one was visiting, and people were sick. It was bad. Restaurants, another one of our agencies, right? We market to restaurants. No one was going. It was basically shut down. Your hospitality and your restaurants, I mean, and your travel, I mean, you're combining it all. And talk about that a little bit. I mean, you were hit from both ends.
I had the privilege of double dipping. We were in
turmoil,
food and beverage, but we were also in travel.
Yeah.
And so I remember very specifically on March 11th, 2020, President Trump came on television and he announced a 30-day travel ban to Europe. And at the time, most people only thought about the impact of air traffic travel to Europe, places like London, and Paris, but I anticipated that this was really the big moment for our industry. I know a lot of people associate kind of their aha moment with COVID becoming a significant thing when the NBA shut down, and more importantly, when the NCAA tournament shut down. But that announcement on March 11th signified for me that things were about to change for my business. Yeah. Now, I didn't know it was going to be 18 months, right? But within about 2 weeks, we lost 85% of our top line revenue. And so on March 18th, we shut the company down for 18 months. And it was a challenge to what we talked about earlier, where a lot of my identity was tied up in this company that I built. Well, there was no company to have an identity tied to. And so for me as a leader, it really pushed me during that time to redefine who I was in that moment and who I was going to aspire to be if we were privileged enough to come out of it. And we did. We've come out very strong, stronger than actually we went in. We actually sold 35% of the business last year to some strategic, but then also some individual investors. And so I've had the privilege of surrounding myself where before I was the only voice in the room, and now there are many. Right. And it presents some unique challenges, but also some extraordinary opportunities for me to learn and grow from other individuals and institutions that have built companies to scale, not all in food and beverage, many not. But it's really given me the opportunity to become a better leader and to take our company into the next 5 to 10 years of what we will be.
That's fantastic. The COVID obviously affected everybody. It affected everybody in different ways. And like for us, for a business, it was really interesting in that, because we have several different agencies in our holding company, it was sort of a little bit of like a mutual fund where one or two stocks could be really down, but then others can be up. Our CPG agency, Quench, we're doing brands, national brands like, Sun-Maid Raisin, Starkist. Well, to me, COVID, to that company and those brands, COVID was like the greatest sampling program in the history of Earth. I mean, if you put it in a package back then, it was on a shelf. people bought it. They stuck it in their pantries. They ate it. They bought more of it. I mean, they couldn't get enough of it. I mean, it was just an insane time for those companies. And then the negative side, obviously, was the restaurants and everything else. I mean, it's a really interesting time. And you said about how it can define things. One of the other things we did was we took at Varsity, we had all these CEOs that were like, what is everyone doing? I mean, this just happened. It was unprecedented. What is everybody else doing? So we thought, well, all right, we're not making, and again, we're not making revenue, business is down, but we still have these relationships. They're our clients. So what can we do? So it wasn't my idea, but one of our guys said, hey, let's create sort of a roundtable and our agency is called Varsity. So we called it the Varsity Roundtable. So we got all these CEOs that were just like, what's everyone doing? And they were able to talk. And it was so successful that we did it the next week. And then they talked more. And then more and more CEOs jumped in. They weren't even our clients. And it became this open source sharing. That has now been, we are on about, I think it's like 250th roundtable. We've been doing them every week since the first month of COVID.
Wow.
And it was done for a company, for us. I mean, again, we don't make any money from it. And it wasn't about that. It was just a place for people to really vent and help. And now we have speakers come in and talk, and everyone's obviously well beyond COVID, but it's really allowed us to be a thought leader and assist these folks. And, at the end of the day, it's what it's all about. And I know a big thing for you is mentorship, right? I mean, talk about giving back. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about that, but I'll also talk similarly to your roundtable. So in February of 2020, I had the privilege of joining the organization YPO, which is Young President Organization, which is very similar to what you defined. There's 35,000 YPO members globally, and it's really for business leaders who have decided that they want to walk towards betterment as a person, as a leader, as a family member, as someone contributing to their community, in partnership with other leaders. And so I am in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore chapter here in the region, and I'm in leadership. And I can tell you that organization was really critical in me navigating everything that I had to go through during COVID. Now, we didn't meet weekly, but we do meet monthly in a small group of 7 to 10 people, and we have forum. And
I didn't know. I'm YPO too. I didn't know YPO. Yeah.
So YPO is really what sustained me during COVID. And I'm privileged to be on the ladder now in leadership.
Good for you.
And so, as far as mentorship, when I started the company, it was a priority for me to give opportunity to underrepresented populations. Now, as I started to grow the company, my focus started to turn inward, Michael, if I'm being honest. And, the beginning of 2020, it was difficult for anybody to tell me that I wasn't the shit. I built this company from zero to something much larger than I had ever aspired to as a young person. But COVID took all of that away.
Yeah.
And so what it reminded me of is that there was a mission that I started this company with, and it was something that I needed to recommit to when we reopened. And so now we're really pouring into our crew members. When I hire someone, specifically, let's take Dunkin' Donuts. If I bring in someone as a frontline worker that's pouring coffee, if they're still pouring coffee for us in 3 years, both them and the organization has done something wrong. We want to scale people up. It is not cost effective for us to have people in the same position for multiple years. So if we're not scaling someone up to take on additional responsibility inside our company, and sometimes even outside of our company, then we've done something wrong. My mentor told me a good leader expects or wants people to leave. A great leader expects them to.
Yeah.
And so either they're leaving the position that we're hiring them for, or they're leaving to go to another organization. But either way, we have to invest in our hourly crew members because we can't afford not to.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we really communicate out and share out to our community and our organization. And people know that we're going to invest in them in ways that other companies might not to. And we feel like that gives us a competitive advantage. And as a leader, it makes me feel good about not only our bottom line results, but also the success that we can feel. I have a manager who's been with us for 8 years. Her name is Marta, and she started as a single unit manager, and now she's a multi-airport director.
It's
And
awesome.
to see her growth and to understand the impact that that has had on her family is tremendous. And I want to do that 100 times over.
Sure.
And I have the
Yeah.
privilege of being able to do that as a leader of our company.
And think of it this way. I mean, and that's what's so great about this country, I'll say, is like you were making whatever, $22,000 a year. I think you had free room or board or whatever you were managing, right? So you're probably like, I'm getting by. This is okay. And look, obviously you're very well educated. You have a great drive and personality, but you created a huge company, and that's really super cool. Really super
Michael,
cool.
I can tell you specifically in that first year, 2002, I made $19,117.43. I can tell you that specifically because that W-2 still sits on my desk.
Yeah,
I have it framed.
yeah.
I look at it every day just to remind me of where all of this started and where now we've grown the company to. I'm extremely proud.
Yeah. And, you mentioned YPO, and I've been very privileged to be in that organization for, gosh, I think at least 20 some years.
So you joined when you were 17.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's one of those things. It used to kick you out when you're 50. In fact, I got the rocking chair and showed up at the front door.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that was the thing. And then they decided to have YPO Gold, WPO, and all that stuff. So I stayed in, and now we're like a forum for life. So my guys, we meet once a month, and we are together. A lot of it's virtual because these guys, a lot of them are retired and stuff. So I'm old. I mean, it's YPO Gold, but I always say it's silent G. YPO old. So, but it was the greatest thing I've ever done for me. It made me a better husband, better father, better businessman, better employer, better friend. I mean, I mean that. Yeah, just a better human. And I think a lot of people see it from the outside and think it's a bunch of guys talking about how many cars they have and where they want on vacation. It's not that at all.
It's not that at all.
It's
a transformational community. Having a high trust network.
Yep.
Is invaluable.
Yeah, someone's got your back, right? You can always pick up that phone and call one of your folks, and just they got your back.
And it's nobody, nothing, never. And
that's right.
Have that level of confidentiality is special.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all. Good for you. I had no idea. That's fantastic. But now I'm going to do a little ploy here. You got to go, and you should go to Austin this year to the Food and Beverage Roundtable. I mean, if you can, check it out. It'll be, I think it's in January. Okay. I'll probably be speaking there, but you should go. I mean, I'd love to meet you in person. It'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'd love that. So, because we'll
be celebrating a Phillies World Series by then.
You're making me nervous. I hope so. I hope you're right. But our company, we do an annual food and beverage trends report every year. We've been doing them for 15, 16 years. And so a lot of times we launch that at the Food and Beverage Roundtable. So it's always really cool stuff.
Awesome. Send me an invite and I'll be there.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely. I'll make sure you get it after this, after our conversation here. So, okay. When you go to a restaurant, you have a choice between human interaction or self-ordering kiosks. And I know that, you guys need to be really high speed, efficient and all that. What do you prefer?
Well, it depends, right? Deploying technology is a strategy that should be done with intention and asking the question, and then what, right? Mm-hmm. I would tell you a story. So the first time we experimented with self-ordering technology was in 2008 at JFK Airport, Terminal 5. And we deployed, at the time, iPads at our Dunkin' Donuts because we thought, technology is moving in this way and it's fun and it's cool. But nobody wants to walk up to a counter and order a coffee by pressing buttons. Communicating to a cashier, medium cream and sugar takes about 15 seconds. When you are forcing someone to press hot coffee, then medium, then sugar, then extra sugar, we found that was a strategy that wasn't successfully deployed at that time. Now, that was back in 2008. I will say trends have matured since then. And so there is an opportunity to have self-ordering technology at a place like Dunkin' Donuts, and people have learned to navigate it quickly. You have hot buttons for certain high usage items. And so I say to people all the time, because my friends question me, whenever they see an iPad, they assume that means that technology has taken someone's job. And what I try to educate people on is that, if you deploy technology in a intentional way, and smart way, it allows you to redirect what you would have otherwise spent on front of house in the back of house. Or maybe you're deploying it at a leadership level that's multi-unit capable. And so it's not necessarily replacing jobs, but allowing savvy business leaders to take that investment and redeploy it in other ways. I will tell you that the benefit is, technology doesn't call out. Sometimes you have to reboot the systems, but it always upsells. It always asks you if you want a dessert. It always asks you if you want to package your burger with fries. And so to be able to grow your top line ticket, that's only going to drive bottom line outcomes, which allows a business owner like me to look at expansion, to go into other cities, to be able to bring other people along with us because the business is growing. And so there's opportunity beyond just taking someone's order. And so technology is something you have to look at in parallel kind of decision making. But I enjoy it. There's some concepts that it resonates more significantly than others, but I think there's a balance and there needs to be a balance of both going forward. I don't think we're ever going to have an industry that is exclusively technology or self-ordering driven. And I think you go in with a bunch of assumptions, you understand how your customers respond to it, and then you be agile enough to adjust appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I concur. I mean, I don't want to wait in a massive line, especially if I'm at an airport, but, just pre-ordering and all that kind of stuff isn't all that fun either. So it's just, you want that happy balance. I do like talking to somebody and, just 'cause I talk a lot, I guess, but plus I always ask for some ice in my coffee, just a little bit. I don't want iced coffee. So it's a little tough to explain to an iPad,
to drop a couple cubes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to burn my mouth. So now I know you have at least one daughter, correct?
I have two daughters and a son.
All right. Sorry. There we go. This
26, 25, and 8.
Wow.
I started over, Michael.
You had a little gap year there.
I had a couple gap years.
So I have two daughters, 26 as of last week and coming up on 29. The reason I'm bringing up these families is, we all know we love all our kids the same. But
no, we don't.
But on any given day, depending on the phone call, depending on the visit, there's certainly ones that we like better than others. Michael, Alex, it happens back and forth all the time, just in case you're listening. Those are my daughters.
Love it.
So, we talked about Potbelly. We talked about Smashburger. We talked about Dunkin. We talked about Timber. We talked about Founding Farmers. Am I missing any Ann's?
There you go.
Which one's your favorite? What's your favorite kid there?
Wow. You're gonna force me to say that.
Yeah,
well, I would tell you, because I don't know if any of our franchisors are going to listen to this podcast. I love them all equally, and I am privileged to be able to operate them. I will tell you the one that probably sits deeply in my soul as a person is probably Dunkin' Donuts.
Nice.
And I'll tell you Dunkin' Donuts because when I was growing up in Southwest Philadelphia off of Cobbs Creek Parkway, I had family that lived out by the airport. And in order to get into that area of the city, you have to travel on Cobbs Creek Parkway. And there's a Dunkin' Donuts on the corner of Cobbs Creek Parkway. And I can't remember the cross street, but it's been there for close to probably 30 or 40 years. I'm 48 and I can't remember a time when it wasn't there. And I remember seeing that Dunkin' Donuts and thinking how rich that franchisee must be to have that store. Now I know that owning a single franchise is not necessarily a path to generational wealth, but that Dunkin' Donuts did put in my mind like what was possible.
Yeah.
And so to be able to be now a 14-year franchisee of that brand,
super,
which is our longest franchise relationship. It's pretty special.
That's cool. And I'll say this from the branding side of the world, what a phenomenal job. I mean, Dunkin's been around forever. I mean, at one point in time, it was getting a little tired. It was sort of just fading in the woodwork. And we know, I mean, all these brands, I mean, they come on strong. They're always started somewhere. There's this regional thing, and then they become these big brands, and they struggle to stay relevant, right? And I think Dunkin' has just done a remarkable job of staying relevant. Yeah. I mean, from their graphic design, from their marketing, their branding, to their advertising, and all the cool stuff they've done.
We had the best Super Bowl commercial.
You did.
Ben Affleck, and J-Lo, they did their thing.
They blew it away. They absolutely did.
Mark Wahlberg, it was a beautiful commercial.
Yeah, and it just shows like when you have passion for something, and those guys certainly have passion for that part of the world, and from the Boston area. I just think it was exceptional. In fact, ironically, we have at our holding company level, Pavone Group, we have the longest running Okay, this is no kidding. The longest running Super Bowl commercial voting mechanism called spotbowl.com. So every year we get, thousands and thousands and thousands of votes from around the world, and people vote for their favorite Super Bowl commercial as it's being played, as the game is being played. And then the national media outlets reach out to us, and then we tell them the results. And Dunkin' Donuts was certainly a stellar winner. Yeah,
come on now, tell me, Michael, it was at the top.
Yeah, it was. Well, I'm looking over here at my guy that runs it. It was the top one. Yeah, it was.
I thought it was. There you go. Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you for phoning a friend and getting confirmation. It was a pretty special advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to order my Dunkin' jumpsuit, but I'm sure it's in the mail.
Yeah, there you go. That's everything. All the
corporate will see this and they'll send me one.
Yeah, all the merch, everything they did around that was super cool.
Super cool.
The outtakes from the, it's funny too, because when it comes to this marketing stuff, like it used to be just a TV spot. And the reason I looked over to ask Dave's the guy you spoke to. He's the one that kind of heads up this podcast. He's also the one that really runs Spot Bowl. And it used to be, we've been doing this so long that in the beginning, we didn't know anything. Like, in other words, the game, it was all about the game. The game was played. And then people realized, well, people love the commercials. So we never knew, like you and everybody else, we just sit there and watch the game, cut to a commercial. Oh, it's a commercial for fill in the blank. Now, they release the commercials to us ahead of time. They tell us what it's about. They send us outtakes. They give us information because they realize that, because it's a couple $1 million for 30 seconds, that they need to get as much juice out of squeeze as much juice out of this as possible. So they want to know, they put stuff online, they do teasers, and it's turned into an event unto itself. And we're really proud to have been a part of it. So it's kind of funny that you brought that up. That's cool stuff.
Now, I will tell you my all-time favorite Super Bowl commercial.
All right.
Now, I remember the star, but I don't even remember the brand.
Uh-oh.
Remember the commercial with the kid and the Star Wars mask, and he was going around zapping
Volkswagen,
things?
Yeah.
And he went and he zapped the car, and the car started. That was my all-time favorite Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, that was a Volkswagen spot. That was a fantastic spot.
Fantastic commercial.
Yeah. I'll tell you mine now because I'm a simp, and the Budweiser commercials. And, there was one though in particular where the guy, he raises these horses, and it goes on to be a Clydesdale, and it takes off, and the horse leaves, and there's a parade. And I almost get choked up thinking about it. It was so well done. There's a parade, the guy's standing there at the parade, and the horse sees him, breaks away, chases him down on the road. Oh my gosh, it was. I had to do a live TV I had to do a live segment on the news about the best TV spot, and they played it, and I wasn't expecting them to play it. I'm like, I had tears going down my face.
You got emotional. Look at you.
I still get emotional. I think it was the best all time. Story. It was just cute. So,
and the best story always wins, Michael.
That's right, man.
Best story always wins.
Yeah. We always tell people a brand is a promise, but you have to tell a story. You have to draw emotion, make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel something about your brand, and that's how you break through. And it's always important. A lot of times clients will say stuff. Hey, we just want to sell more. We got to do this. We got to do that. And really it comes down to the fact that you got to do great creative to break through to get people's attention. So I have a couple more questions for you, and I want to hit them for sure. So now, look, we talked about the airports you're in the greater DC area. Some of the most, they're busy, they're important, they're huge. Other airports, you have great concessions in those airports. Other airports that you think have great concessions in the country? Yeah,
I will tell you, Atlanta, one of the busiest airports in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely in this country. And then Houston, Orlando, Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte. These are all markets that we
massive hubs
kind of look at. It's important for us to be in high demand airport systems because you never know how the world's going to respond. Morgan Housel is one of the people who I look to for kind of strategic direction when I'm thinking about my business. And one thing he always says is that as a business leader, if you're only planning for the risk and threats that you can predict, you're probably missing the biggest one.
Oh, yeah.
And so how we kind of shelter ourselves from that is we go into high demand market. So even if a legacy airline like an American or United or a Delta or a Southwest decides that they no longer want to operate in that market, there'll be another legacy carrier chomping at the bit to get in. And so that's kind of our strategy when we're looking to grow nationally, is to look at high demand airport markets. And those are just a few that I named.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Morgan Housel. In fact, we have him speaking at our YPO. He's one of, I think he might even be next month's speaker. So I'm really
we're bringing him in on the 13th of November.
Are you really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
His book's incredible. I made my daughters read it. So, what's next for Baldi Management Group? I mean, we talked about in other airports. What's next for you? What's your vision? Where are you hoping to go?
My vision is to grow the tent and plant trees that I may never even know their shade. Because that's when I think community and when a business is thriving is when you're willing to do things that you might not be able to see to fruition. And so we're trying to build a company, we are building a company that will rise the tide for all the boats. I want to create another 20, 25 stories just like mine.
Yeah.
I can invest and grow my company so that it's beneficial and creates generational wealth for me. But I also have the opportunity to listen to the individuals whose stories might not necessarily be taken to the top because they're not fully formed or well articulated. I try to look for those people because I was once that person. I was the property manager in the office and Cynthia Garber came and tapped me on the shoulder, which she did not have to do. And so I'm trying to identify those voices in our companies, the people in leadership, but also the people who we don't necessarily identify with immediately, because a lot of our workforce are ESL, where English is a second language. And so verbal communication is a challenge, but I don't want that to get in the way of us knowing or identifying the next star in our organization. So we're doing things to kind of bridge the gap between those verbal communication kind of challenges so that every voice that's in our organization can be heard. Because listen, I won't pour a cup of coffee or, flip a burger or roll a pretzel today. But that's how our business runs.
Sure.
And so I want to give opportunity and visibility to those individuals in a very intentional way. So that's what's next for the company. And I think if, you pay attention to the pennies and the nickels, the dollars make sense. And I believe if you focus on organizationally, the people who may be at the bottom of the ladder, you'll grow the tent in the business in a way where there's more opportunity created for everyone who's valuable. And so that's what I'm committed to, Michael.
That's fantastic. A question. Have you ever spoke to the woman who tapped you on the shoulder? Have you ever told her?
I mention Cynthia Garber every time I get the opportunity to share how she interceded in my life. And we text probably once or twice a year, but she knows how important she is to me.
That's awesome.
We haven't seen each other in person in probably 10 years, but I tell her story every time I speak about my journey because it was instrumental. So she's aware. You
got to pay it forward, pay it back, and you got to make sure that you acknowledge the folks that helped you get there. That's huge.
And you know what's remarkable, Michael? Over the 18 years that I've been in the business, 16 years leading this company, every now and then I'll get a text message or I'll get a direct message on LinkedIn of someone who worked for our organization and matriculated somewhere else and I've lost contact with, and they've done the same for me. So I know how special it is.
That's cool.
And so whenever I get the opportunity, I try to tell people how they've impacted my life.
Very cool. Well, Stephen, I have one last question. You've been phenomenal, by the way. I could talk for you for hours. You're awesome. One last question. All right. And you can't pick Potbelly or you can't pick one of your brands, but if you had one final meal, what would you eat and why?
Oh, this is easy.
Good. All right. Sometimes people struggle with this.
So. No, this is not a struggle. Michael, I'm from Philadelphia. If I gave any answer other than a gym steak, with an American with fried onions, hot peppers, pickles, and ketchup, I would be doing my city a disservice.
There you go. That's good.
That's
great.
What it would be.
Great answer. It's funny,
South. If you haven't been, you should go the next time you're in Philadelphia.
Yeah, man, I've been. I ate a gym.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your audience.
I was going to say I ate a gym steak last week, and I'm not making that up. We had I don't know if I mentioned, but we had brought in independent agencies all around North America. I had guys from Puerto Rico, Mexico, Canada, all over the continental U.S. come to Philadelphia. And during Happy Hour, we took them to dinners. We treated them right. We showed them the city, Independence, and all that stuff. But when we had the happy hour at my offices, I had Pat's and I had Jim's, and we had little forks, and we did a cheesesteak sampling program, you know.
Oh, and I know who won.
Yeah, you do know who won, so.
I won't make you name it, but I know you know.
I know you know. Hey, I'll throw another one out there. Pat or Tony Luke's down on Oregon Avenue.
Luke's great.
The original.
Oh
Yeah. Delisandro, you know.
Mama's Pizzeria on Belmont Avenue.
Yeah,
I haven't lived in the city for 40 years, but it's still, I know where to go.
Those are legacy places, you know, and yeah, it's all good. All good. In fact, you know what? That'll be my happy meal. The Phillies will be in the playoffs, and I slide down into and get a cheesesteak before the game. It's a part of the whole shtick, so I'm excited about it.
And you also have to get a Wawa fruit punch. Come on.
Oh, there you go.
You got to round it out.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, Stephen, it was fantastic. I really appreciate your time, and it was wonderful talking to you.
I appreciate the invitation, and listen, good luck with the rest of your Forktales going forward. It seems like you've had an incredible run with the amount of episodes that you've already had, and I hope you multiply that by 10 if that is your intention and desire.
That's awesome. Appreciate you.